Hello, Trudy.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is exciting. We have you. I get to ask you all these questions about mysticism and your journey and all the things you are usually interviewing me. So I get to hear
Yeah.
about it. And who was the mystic that you always talk about? Can you say his name?
Saint John of the Cross
Mm-hmm.
and Saint Teresa of Jesus, those two.
Mm-hmm. What about Maharishi?
Oh, Ramana Maharishi, Indian
Did my
mystic.
best.
Yeah.
What do you love about him?
Well, it's interesting because for years now I will read about people going to India and I avoided it. I just wouldn't have anything to do with it because they have so many gods and it turned me off. So what happened recently is Alex Ferrari, he's always talking about Yogananda. So
Mm-hmm.
I got intrigued and I listened to the entire audio of Yogananda's book, just like practically at one go. And then as I started watching videos about him pop up, you know how YouTube push videos up. Ramana
Yes.
Maharishi. What drew me to him is the mysticism, Indian mysticism. So at the age of 16, he believed he was going to die. Instead of panicking, he watched himself almost like, intrigued by the process. So he kept watching the process. And then he he found that his real self comes out. So he was experiencing his real self. Except that, for us, we experience it and we don't, but it just stayed with him. And shortly after, he left his home and he would go to temples and
Mhm.
just sit there days on end. He didn't care that insects were eating him up and all that. That was what. And so people start growing around him. And he doesn't do any teaching. He teaches by silence. All you have to do is sit near him, and you experience the awakening, whatever it is.
Mm.
But what drew me to him is his exercise, the self inquiry.
So when he was an observer pretty much at 16 years old,
Yes,
he was able to take um, and look from his higher self
yes.
onto his physical body.
And he realized from there on that the physical body is not real, just an illusion. So he operated
Mm.
for his real self until his death. And that is what is remarkable about him.
So why did he think he was going to die at 16? What kind of
No,
disease?
no
Just
disease. He just he just felt that
thought
he
I'm
was
going to
going
die.
to die. And that was his awakening actually.
Wow. And so how do people know about him if he teaches through silence?
Well,
I mean, it can't all be silence, but
people gather and they come away with benefit. And there was I forgot his name, Morris Friedman. Anyway, he will come and you know, the Westerners will come with all these questions. And the moment they are in his presence, they fell silent. One of them wrote about him and people start coming. So until then,
wow.
it was just the local gathered around him. But once I forgot who wrote about him, and then people start coming, and soon the ashram will build and
Mhm.
the whole thing. And he never touched money. When he was 16, he threw the remaining of his money into the Ganges River, and he never touched money again. And yet, you know, the ashram was built and everything.
So he didn't travel. Did he travel to the U.S. or the U.S. they traveled to? People
Yeah.
just came to him.
Yes, people went to him. He never went anywhere. But I
That
think,
is a
yeah,
wild story.
yeah.
And so what is his,
The self
I guess I don't know the definition really of mysticism. Maybe we should start there.
yeah. Mysticism, the way they define it is experiencing the real thing, you know, the divine.
Mhm.
It could be anything that is like, you know, all ultra. For me, it's just experiencing God because that was how I started.
Okay.
And for me, that is mysticism. So I follow Christian mysticism until, and then of course later I went into Taoism, which is, you know, the mysticism also, and Buddhism, and then Indian mysticism.
So anything really that where you connect with
We,
God
yeah,
or
the
angelic forces, the divine
yes,
essence
yes,
of another
yeah,
and yourself.
a direct experience.
Okay. So would that be like with cards too? If you're using cards, is that a type of mysticism for you? Are you talking about like just the inner knowing is mysticism, and the cards are more like a tool for
Yes,
mysticism? Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
you could be in nature and then you get
Yep.
so lost in nature. That is a form of mysticism. You experience the intrinsic nature of nature, you know. So all that is, so mysticism is actually really broad if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
But from my, you know, the Christian perspective or the Indian mystics is that direct experience of, for me it's
Mhm.
God, and for Ramana Maharishi is his real self. And of course in the Indian
And he
mystic,
said that.
yeah, his real self is actually the divine self. Took me a while to understand that. And when I understood, he kept talking about self. It didn't make very much sense. And when I realized the real self is divine, our divine self,
Yeah.
everything, all the pieces fall together. And so I
Yeah.
adopt his practice. Yeah, he is famous for the practice of self-inquiry.
All right. So now I know enough. I can ask you about the self-inquiry. I wasn't ready a couple of minutes ago, but now can you tell us about that practice?
Well, now I understand it is easier. But at the beginning, when I explain it, I always say we have to start by remembering that we are spirit and body, and our spirit is the real self. So for the spiritual inquiry is for Ramana Maharishi, the physical self is not the real self. So the inquiry goes this way, like when my throat get itchy. So when, for instance, I practice it this way, when a thought arises, just any thought, so I will ask myself, to whom are the thoughts arising? So I said the thought are arising to me, to I, the physical me, the physical I. According to Ramana Maharishi, the physical I is the subject, and the subject cannot exist without the object, the thought. So if you remove the thought, isolate the thought, and you just concentrate on the I, and as you concentrate on it, you keep asking, who am I? Who am I? As you look at the I long enough, the I will disappear and the real self comes out. And that was what happened. So I practiced that So I will say, to whom are the thoughts arising? To I, to me. And then I kept asking, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And kept watching the physical I. And then you will feel the real self emerging. And the real self is actually our higher self.
Right. That we're so disconnected from
Yes.
now because our brains are just going all the time.
And then
So
when you
go ahead.
have, when the real self comes out, then you see clearly that the physical I is an illusion. Although I have not reached the physical I is still very real. But for Ramana Maharishi and Buddhist monks, they see very clearly the physical I is just an illusion. It's not real.
So, okay, so practically, I understand the concept, and it's reminding me of so many different things. It's reminding me of, meeting your higher self. It's reminding me of the thing that we just went over on your channel, which was recognize, address, integrate, release, where you're talking to yourself. You're really reaching inside to pull out an answer or a feeling or a thought, right? And examine it. When you are saying, who am I, and you're looking at the physical I, how are you doing that? In your mind, you are looking at you are seeing your physical body as an observer?
Yes. What I usually
Just
do.
your body.
Yeah, the person. Yes.
Okay.
The physical, the physical person, our ego. The ego, physical I. I have to do it with my eyes closed. As we are talking about this, my real self, I can feel my real self. It's a very, very strong energy. And then it's kind of concentrated around there and it just gripped me.
Remember, you can go like this and pull it down, like the slinky, so it doesn't hurt. I can tell now, when your eyes get your eyelids droop a little bit. And you're like, oh,
It's the pressure. But it's a very nice feeling though.
Okay, so have you heard of the I am? Like the Saint Germain, the violet flame, the I am?
Yes.
So I wonder how similar those are. I mean, both of them are getting to the root cause, but
very similar.
Or the root self, not the root cause. The root self is I am. And I could never get into I am.
Yeah. Who am I? Who am I? And then it becomes I am. And the I am is the divine self.
And it becomes I am.
Yeah, who am I? Who am I? So it's I am the divine self. It is a concept very difficult for Christian to accept because essentially, according to Indian mysticism, that divine, essentially, we are divine. It is almost like saying we are God. I always say with a small capital letter to differentiate from, and it's very difficult for Christian mind to accept that because it's blasphemy. How could you say you are God? That's blasphemy.
Yes.
But when you think of it, we come from the divine. Because from Ra, I understand that God did not create us, like we create something like this, then it will be outside, an entity separate. But God created us by expanding, which means that we are essentially still the infinite creator. Pieces, fragments, but we still are from that big, picture or which our nature is the source, the divine.
Does it feel like to you that we're all or many of us like that are interested in the new earth or going from 3D to 5D, anybody that's talking about that stuff that isn't stuck in the roots of religion and all the dogma and the rules that come with that.
Yes.
Are we all kind of saying the same thing and maybe calling it something different?
Yes. Because when I read about, when I watched enough about Ramana Maharishi, one day it came to me, if I did not know the Christian God, the Catholic God, or the Catholic mystics, and I had that experience at the age of 21, and if I had background like Ramana Maharishi, I would say that I was experiencing my real self.
Yeah.
And because I had the background of St. John of the Cross, for me, it was God. When I experienced, because when I experienced God, it was energy. That's how I know
Yeah.
God is not. I revised my thought about God is not that, old man with the beard sitting up in heaven, which is the
That's
image
right.
we had as children, But I
Yeah.
knew God as energy because that was how I experienced Him.
And when was that? What age were you then?
21.
21.
Yeah, when I was
That's
21.
still very young.
Yeah, that's why 4
What a
years
gift.
after I entered the monastery and I told the mother prioress and she didn't believe me. The priest, the retreat master believed me immediately because he could see that it was authentic. But right to the end, the mother prioress, a Spanish nun from Spain, Madrid, she didn't believe me. She just told
Do you
me,
think, go
yeah.
ahead.
She told me the fruits doesn't bear, your fruits doesn't bear, witness to what you say. I said, well, you always say that. Oh, I told her, well, look at how I easily not only forgive, but forget. Every time the nuns become, I had these 3 nuns who, set out to make my life uncomfortable. And I say, every time they become nice to me, I not only forgive, I forget everything. Oh, she said, oh, you are born that way. It's just your nature.
Yeah. And talk about setting up a cycle, like not only do they not believe you, you
Yeah.
have to defend yourself and then they knock down your defense.
Yeah.
And you're doing exactly what they're trying to say is like, for so long we've been told, be selfless, turn the other cheek, give people everything that you have. And I'm not sure that Jesus did that at all. I
No.
think that Jesus really took pride in his physical body and cared for his physical body and gave to people, but he was as important as other people.
Yes.
And then the giving became, so here you are, and the church you're doing what the church was saying, like, listen, just kind of do whatever you need to do for other people and forgive and forget and let them just keep pounding on you.
Yeah.
And then you get more of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
you know what? Her disbelief did not affect me at all because when you experience this, you don't question it. Like an Indian guru was saying, if you question it, then it's not real. The
she has
experience,
never experienced it, I don't think.
probably that's why she.
How could she know? How could she recognize that?
Yes,
But the father, I forget who you
the
said, but the
priest.
the, the priest probably did.
Yes, right away he recognized it.
Yeah. So you said another one was Saint Teresa of, did you say Saint Teresa of Avila?
Yes,
Now
she
she
was.
was a mystic, right?
Yes, she was the founders of our monastery. Of all things, my throat starts. I think I'm. Yeah, you quickly put a straight.
Okay. You sure you're okay to continue?
Yeah.
I'm just, do like 10 more minutes, but I'd love to hear more, a little bit more, if you can. Otherwise, we can follow another time. So Teresa of Avila, am I saying that right? Or Avila?
Yes.
Avila, okay. What do you love about her? Or is her story similar to Maharishi? Ramana Maharishi?
Well, she went into the definition of meditation or contemplative prayer. So she had the prayer of simplicity. And then which is, something we can attain by our own efforts, which is when you apply yourself to meditation, after a while, you are just, the distracting thoughts doesn't bother anymore. And you are just, for us, just there with God. And then she had the prayer of quiet. For her, the prayer of quiet is God gives it to who he will. You can't attain it by your own efforts. And he said, we don't know why God chose to give it to some and not to others. So for St. John of the Cross, the prayer of simplicity is a quiet contemplation. You can arrive at it by your own effort. Prayer of quiet is infused contemplation. You cannot arrive at it at your own effort. It has to be given to you by God. But for Ramana Maharishi, there is no that definition. Anyone can practice that self-inquiry. But for some people, they arrive at it early. And for some, it takes them a lifetime. And so one thing cleared my mind. So one day somebody told him that this young girl, so young, I think she was really young, 10 or 10 something. Anyway, very young. I don't remember the age. And they say, how remarkable that she, at such a young age, can attain to the samadhi, the infused contemplation, essentially. And Ramana Maharishi, I believe it's him. It could be another Indian mystic, but anyway, I believe it was him. He said, yes, but how many lifetimes did she have prior? And that is a good question. I used to wonder why, I got to it, I attained to it at the age of 21. So Ramana Maharishi would say, but how many, reincarnation prior did she have? And so in this lifetime, this young girl was ripe for it, and she immediately went into it.
Yes.
10 years. Yeah.
So, but they just didn't call it meditation.
No.
So Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross were meditating, but calling it contemplative prayer.
Yes.
They weren't praying with beads or anything. They were silent.
Yes.
And quiet.
Yes.
It is so interesting. And it's so interesting to me how, what makes St. Teresa of Avila and especially the women, get approved by the church like you're a mystic, as opposed to, oh, you think you're God, Did Teresa ever say, I think I'm God? Like, they never said that. They called it experiencing God.
Yes. Yes.
But they would say things like, I'm experiencing God inside of me, like feeling that love and feeling that peace. It's just almost splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah.
But I like that.
But what I find very useful with this is every time I get a negative thought or I get unhappy about something, so I just practice the self-inquiry, and I can feel my higher self, the real self, taking over, because there is peace and a kind of subtle joy. And then it's easy to move away from everything. So it is possible to be occupied with this inside you and remove, even when you attend to daily things, a part of you could still be engaged with God or the divine while you
Mhm.
engage in the things around.
Okay, so another practical question. So the next time I'm worrying about something, how long or how many times does it take for you to get an answer or some type of resolution? How many times do you say, who am I? Who am I? Would it be like a minute or just a couple minutes? Has that shortened over time as you've practiced? I feel like my higher self comes in
Yeah.
a lot quicker these days, but
Yeah,
not
for
when I'm
me,
worried about something.
yeah,
That's
for
the
me
trick.
it's like three. Usually I repeat it once, twice, three times, and then because I am in this state almost the whole time, I don't really leave this state.
Right.
So it's easy for me.
Yes. Okay. It reminds me of what you sent to me today, which you said, I am actually able to operate from my real self, which means I am peaceful most of the time and do not let much disturb me. It is like stone dropping into water. It causes a surface ripple, but does not penetrate to the depths.
Yes. So that's how it is.
That's just how you talk. That's just how you text, Trudy. Like, it's so beautiful.
I know when you read it, I thought, wow, it's really
Who
beautiful.
wrote that? Yeah, like, I know that you've always told me you're not a teacher. You're a
Yes,
student and you're always practicing. But right now, you just came on and taught me how to do this pretty quickly. I'm going to keep you updated on how it goes because I'll,
it's wonderful
be doing it
because
tonight.
then you realize, like for instance, I was on Ali Heart and Soul Connected, and
Yeah.
somebody wrote something like, "How would you feel if you consume excretion?" It was something
People,
like that.
so weird. Yeah.
And then, so she felt badly about it. And for me, doesn't bother me one bit because guess
Right.
what? It
Right.
doesn't hurt me at all. Whoever does it, it hurts them more than it hurts me. Because
Yeah.
when you arrive at that stage, people, oh, but of course, when you are engaged or wrapped in this divine,
Mhm.
that's why the saints, people can hold anything at them or treat them anyway, and it doesn't touch them. But when you are in that night of the soul, I've gone through that as a nun, then it's like this armor is removed and you hurt and you hurt and you hurt.
Trigger city.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you have a base, a solid structure. You are firmly rooted in
Yeah.
yourself and self-love and trust that you're not alone and trust that you have the divine spark of God
Yes.
here. And this is an experience here.
Yes.
This body is, think of it from Taylor Rental. for
Yeah.
for this life, when I do the hypnosis and the past life regressions, and people will come out of their body and say, whew, feels so good to be out of that thing, like they were wearing corsets
Yeah.
or something, you know and they say it over and over and over, that they're not all making it up, that this is the experience of getting out of the body that is just so limiting. But there are
Yes.
certain things we can do in the body that we can't do as our higher selves, as energy.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I
Yeah.
sign up with Research for Life. So
Mm-hmm.
when I die, The moment I die, they will contact them and they will bring my body immediately to the, so it's entire body donation. Because when I die, I am just leaving behind the body. I'm not interested in the body anymore. I'm already moving on.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like when people will look down and say, oh, I see my body's on the bed, but I'm moving way away from that now. And they go, oh boy, that looks awful. Like, was that me? It's so strange to help people go through that and see that experience. And the body, it's literally like taking off your sweater at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, and also like, so the Christians, and you and I were both raised Catholics, but the Christians and the Catholics believe that your spirit is eternal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I don't know, to me, it's just not a stretch that the spirit might decide, if it's a spirit and it's eternal, might decide to come and do this again.
Yes. Well, I do believe in reincarnation.
Absolutely.
Yes. There was a time when I said, I don't know enough about it. I'll just put a question mark. But it makes sense.
I didn't know about it either. That's right. We don't. We think it's some weird thing. I grew up thinking, I don't want to come back as a frog, or that was my understanding of it.
But it makes sense. It makes more sense than having this one life. You know, and I used to think, why would God create us with original sin to where we are prone to sinning and they punish us for it? I mean,
like, well, who's playing this joke on? Yes. Yes. You know, and having one life, when people are like, this is your one life to live, you got to whatever. Like, yeah, we don't want to waste our life. Right. But it does feel like it doesn't take that uniqueness away from me. It feels like this is my one life here right now, doing this and experiencing whatever I'm supposed to. And then being able to look at it that way and say, well, what am I supposed to be doing? You know, it kind of takes the fear out of it.
Yeah.
A little bit. And even, you know, speaking of fear and death, so it was only left for me after I had done all these sessions with hypnosis and past life regression and gone through the deaths with people and then their rebirths, their physical deaths, I should say. And so many of them did not feel pain at their death. And that was a relief to me, because when I started feeling like, oh, okay, reincarnation and the spirit just leaves the body, and, you know, there was no fear of the unknown, but there was still fear of being hurt. Right. But many, many people at the end of their life don't experience the pain of actually dying. You know, the illness and stuff they have, but not, or in a car crash or something, they'll be up above their body and watch the car crash.
Yeah, they check out.
They check out before that. They're like, okay, I'm going to experience the crash, but I'm not going to experience the pain. You know, it's interesting to me.
Yeah, I did ask Ra in one station about my mother. And he said, not to worry, because at that point, when we are so close to crossing over, the spirit will leave the body. They go in and out. And I know that from my mother. She almost died, and then she came back to life. And one day, my sister-in-law's mother-in-law was dying. And my mother said, oh, right now, her spirit, her soul is going in and out, in and out. And I knew she knew, because she went through it. And I also know she almost died and she was in and out because, you know, I went back to take care of her, and she told me, very seriously, she called me Agate. She said, Agate, you know, the wall is not real. You can go right through it. I said, it's real. Look, you know, it's very solid. She says, no, you can go right through the wall to your neighbor.
And that doesn't sound like your mother. Like, she wouldn't talk like that.
She's very practical minded.
Yeah.
And then I knew her spirit traveled around when she was dying.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
kind of cool that she was able to talk to you like that,
yeah. It's funny
you
because
know?
it's not real. You try it. And it
Yeah.
was so from she was part of the reason I go into a hospice volunteering, because I realized when people
Mm.
are dying, their soul or spirit goes in and out, which
And
means,
so how did you want to participate in that?
oh, I usually sit with them and I start
Mhm.
mentally talking to them.
Ah,
I
yes.
usually sit with those. I like to sit with those in coma, completely out of it, and I know they hear me because there was one instance where the woman was in coma and I started communicating.
Yeah.
And then the nurse came in. I was talking to the nurse when I heard a sound. I turned. She sat up in the bed. So I quickly moved to her. And she was looking at me straight in the face, but her eyes were already not focusing. When they are so close to death, the eyes are
Wow.
opaque. You look at the
Oh,
eyes
right.
and you
They're
know they
like
are not
glazed
sleeping.
over.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I found tears rolling down my eyes. I wasn't crying, but tears were just rolling down my eyes. And then I realized that she heard me. She knew I was with her and she heard me. So that was one powerful moment.
That is a very powerful moment, Trudy. And so when you say I speak to them, you speak to them telepathically
Yes,
and verbally, both.
yes, but mostly telepathically.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
When my mom was passing, like actively passing, she had dementia, early onset dementia. Um, and mostly at the end, it was more like dehydration. She stopped eating. And so it was just a very slow, withering death. And, they were putting the morphine under her tongue, that kind of thing. And she had a beautiful, beautiful death. And I feel like she was so protected,
yeah,
from feeling the pain. And I felt my aunt and I were there, her sister
yeah,
slash best friend. So my aunt and I were there, and John Paul II and Padre Pio came to greet her. Have you ever had people or spirits come and greet them?
Well, one time I saw a tall, with my mind's eyes, a tall,
Yeah.
slim man on my right, in PJs. So I asked Ra, you know, who was that? In my following session. He told me it's the loved one of the patient. And
Oh, okay.
that was the one time, that I see with my mind's eyes. Most of the time I can sense the energy. And when they are very close, the whole room fill up. You could
Yeah.
just feel it. The energy is so strong. It's just like the whole room will fill up. So that is usually how I know. And I would tell the nurse, I think, the patient is very close. And then now the nurse will ask me whenever I go and sit with them when I come out. So what do you think? So one day I come out and I say, no, she's sleeping peacefully. She has still some days to go. And the nurse say, yeah, I think so. Or I will come
What
out
a
and say,
beautiful gift.
yeah, my
Yeah.
empath gift, I have it with the dying.
Yeah. That really is beautiful. And have you ever had to guide a soul up?
No, I have not. Although Ra told me that was my work at another lifetime, but
Mhm.
I have not really engaged in that.
What do you
Most
what did they tell you that was your work?
that
Helping
I
the dying or specifically helping them to
helping the
move?
cross move over. He told me that Archangel Ashra that I was working with Archangel Ashra with, they call it psychopomp, helping, you know, like we help them transition. And then on there, you know, sometimes they get stuck or they don't want to move on. And then the psychopomp help them cross over.
Okay. It's psycho what?
Pomp, P-O, psycho, P-O-M-P.
Psychopomp. Okay.
Yeah.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah.
But also in a couple of my sessions, they said, yeah, sometimes, you know, it was a gentleman that worked at a graveyard. And he said, you know, I feel very comfortable here, but I know that there are spirits around me. And, you know, some of them I don't really want around me. And so that's why he came and wanted this session. How can I get rid of these spirits? They're just hanging around me and I don't like their energy. And in the session, they said, that's what we did in that session is we guided this man away.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would never believe this stuff if it didn't happen right in front of me. I'm totally engaged, you know, but sometimes they just need guidance. They don't have anyone with them. And this gentleman didn't want to leave his house. He had been in his house for a very long time and was like, I don't want to leave my house. And didn't know that there was another option by the time we came to the session.
Yeah.
They're like, where do I go? And we said, up there. It was fascinating and beautiful.
Yeah, I learned about that. Yeah. So I had an incident where the nurse told me, the man just passed. You can go in and deliver the cookies to the wife. The wife is with him. So I went inside and this energy came. It was so strong. I fell back a bit. So I asked the wife, can I touch him? Because I felt a strong need to touch him. And the wife asked me, he's still around, isn't he? And then tears filled her eyes. So I touched him. I touched him on the sheets covering him, and it was warm to the touch. He just passed. And then I asked Ra about him. And Ra said, yes, that was his energy. And he didn't want to leave because he was expecting a young woman, his granddaughter or someone, to visit him. And the person didn't make it in time. She was delayed or something. And then he wanted to hang around for his funeral. So Ra said the people on the other side were very anxious because if he stayed too long on this side, he could get stuck. And then, but he did. I never know that. But he did eventually move over.
Now, how do you know that?
Oh, he told me. Ra told me, you know, in that channel station. So Ra said he finally did move over. And then he told me, you could tell the hospice about this young woman. And then I should have while it was still fresh, you know, and I thought, well, you know, so I just let it go. But I should have told the coordinator who might find it interesting.
Right. Well, I don't think that granddaughter would really want to know. Maybe that.
Yeah, he said that it was to tell the family that it was fine. That, you know, the disease accepted that she couldn't make it in time.
Yeah. And you know what? He was seeing her anyway, wherever she was.
Yes.
You know, how often does that happen? There's no time and space.
Yes.
At that point, you know, they can go wherever. I mean, how many stories have we heard of, you know, not chickadees, cardinals? Everybody notices a cardinal, right?
Yeah.
A bird cardinal, or, you know, you'll see a cardinal, or a rose will just bloom or something after somebody passes.
How interesting. I never see hummingbird in my garden. A few days ago, this hummingbird came right in front of me and stayed for a while, didn't just leave, stay for a while.
Wow.
I wonder what that is.
Trudy, next session with Ra. Ask, how does it feel to have like Ra in your back pocket?
Well, I I channel spiritual messages, but questions like that, when I haven't arrived at, where I could ask him these kind of questions, and get answers. But
Why
some
not? Do you think it's like kind of just too silly, not deep enough, not mystical enough?
no, that I my psychic sense is not strong enough to get answers like that,
Oh, okay.
because
But you do get some deep ones, deep
spiritual
lessons.
messages. Yes,
Yeah.
because Raha told me, I asked him, do I need to go into, classes and all that to better channel you? And he said, it helps if you have the vocabulary. Because if you do not have the word, it takes a lot of energy for us to put that word in your mind.
Yeah.
And I find it's true, like the verses on non-duality. So I study it, I watch it, I get all the words, all the thing.
Yeah.
And then when I want to put it in verse form, I ask him, could you help me? And so I could feel them helping me. And then I would stop and say, what else do you have to tell me? And those are really from him, because the
Yeah.
last one, a rhyme came into my head. Well, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
I thought that's a silly rhyme,
Yes, I
But,
felt that. So I'm like, are you kidding? But it made sense and it answered my question. But it was very
but
like nursery
yeah,
rhyme. Yeah.
it won't go away. I still see it clearly. I say, okay. And then I write it out, and it's true. The whole thing becomes very beautiful.
Yeah. It's so fun.
Yeah, I owe it to you actually, because you were reading your poems one day, and I
Yeah.
thought I tried so hard with automatic writing and I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Why don't I try the verses? Because I remember that I used to write verses. And true enough, that really
Yeah.
worked for me.
And yours are long and just flow. They're like,
Talking,
I
yeah.
like how you call them verses because they're not exactly poems. They're really,
Yeah.
I don't know, just really nice flowing guidance,
Yes.
almost in a conversational
Yeah.
tone.
Well, it's very different from yours. Yours is very intricate, and you have to read a few times to understand it. And then
Yeah.
it takes you an hour to go into them. And it's just chock full
Yeah.
of messages about how to live our life better and all that.
Yeah.
Mine is
Lots of layered meanings. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, mine
Like
is
a riddle. Mine are more of a riddle. Yours are
yeah,
very easy and clear
yeah, as it is.
and also pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Trudy, do you have any verses that stick out in your mind that you really love that have come to you? If not, that's okay. I was just wondering if you'd.
Yeah, I haven't prepared for it. No.
Okay. So we can
Yeah,
talk about that next time, your
yeah,
verses that you love. And I'm going to put your it's on your website, your blog, right?
yeah, yes.
Okay. I'm going to put a link underneath if people want to read those
Yes.
because they really are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, and my dog is. Oh, you want to say hi? Oh, you're not. She's like, she was ready to jump off. So I'm like, okay, it's been an hour. She knows, or almost an hour. So
Oh
thank
my
you
God,
so much. Yeah.
it's
Yes.
amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you
Yes.
very much for having me. I really enjoyed this chat.
Thank you so much. Can we do this again, Trudy? And
Oh,
I want to talk about duality and non-duality. I'm going to
yeah.
pick your brain about that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I knew you'd love it. All right. Thank you, Trudy. Bye, everyone.
Oh, bye.